we haven't really realized the maturity that other occupations enjoy. And so if we want to take the next evolutionary steps to be the change agents, the leaders, to have the institutional capacity to tackle these challenges, there are some really substantial issues that need to be addressed. And so some of the things that we see through extensive research that we've done, through research that other organizations have done, is that there are very few employers requiring any sort of formal competencies, continuing education, credentialing, training for people working in this space, which is a lack of recognition of the professionalism required to do this work. And within, professionals consistently cite numerous institutional barriers, but the most significant of which are budgetary restrictions, competing institutional priorities, a lack of standardization, and a lack of established and accepted best practices. Overwhelmingly, we see that climate change and sustainability is practiced as reaction or compliance, not proaction and through opportunity. And overwhelmingly, we see a really substantial deficiency in science literacy and preparedness competencies that are reflected by people working in this space as what they see within their institutions as well. These are the hard realities of where we are today as fields of practice. And so ACO and ISSP came together last year and said that we needed to work together to elevate and advance our professions. And despite the huge progress that we've made in recent years, we're still operating at the margins in most organizations. A lot of the folks who work primarily on climate change and sustainability, as opposed to integrating it into their occupations, into other occupations, really are seen as a legacy to the older school environmental health and safety professionals. They're seen as cost centers in their organizations, and they have not been elevated to the kind of stature that has them driving high-level enterprise risk management, high-level strategic planning in their organizations. In parallel, we've got really substantial equity and social issues that are becoming even more pressing and urgent than ever. And as we are seeing from the ever-increasing reports, including yesterday's announcement from 11,000 scientists worldwide, is the incremental change that we've been moving forward, while it has been substantial over 30 years, is just not fast enough. And we really, as a result, can't wait any longer for the world to realize that it needs a very vibrant, very effective, and profound group of professionals leading the way. And frankly, needs an army, a climate smart, a sustainability smart army of professionals driving this transformation. And so our objectives in developing this Congress were to build support and demand for our professions and for our professionals. And in order to do so, we put together a planning council that consisted of nearly 40 professionals from across sectors, which is reflected on the Congress website. And through that, we came to a consensus that the priorities for this Congress would be to agree on key skills and abilities needed for success, to lower barriers and deepen connections across fields of practice and other occupations, to better educate, empower, and equip our practitioners to be successful in their organizations and their communities, and to identify high priority strategies and next steps. In order to accomplish those goals, we needed to engage and build consensus amongst a group of professionals that has become quite splintered over the last 10 to 15 years. Overwhelmingly, we see private sector practitioners operating and collaborating together. We see local governments operating and collaborating together. We see higher ed institutions working together in niches. And occupations are not defined by sector. They're not advanced by sector. They're defined by common competency. And so in order to overcome this challenge, we need to engage and build consensus across those sectors amongst the people working in this space. And as we began shaping this Congress, that manifested itself into 5 primary program themes, which we turned into the tracks of the working sessions that will be taking place at this event. So our first track is on elevating the stature of the climate change and sustainability occupations. The second on integrating climate change and sustainability into other occupations. Third track being on shaping the market demand for professionals and practices. Fourth on advancing decision support resources and tools. And lastly, but not least, exploring our role as occupations in addressing, as members of this field, in addressing environmental justice, social good, and public awareness issues. Ultimately, what we were trying to achieve with this was to not build a program where you're being lectured from the front of the room, but rather where you're coming together with your peers to tackle these challenges. So in other words, this event isn't just about the 4 days of the event. It's about where we go to tackle these challenges together the day after, the week after, the month after, and the year after. And so this program has been designed through a substantially inclusive and collaborative process. We, beyond the planning council of approximately 40 individuals, added another couple of dozen individuals into committees, the subcommittees that were aligned with each of the program tracks. We had committees that were oriented towards the offsite activities and the training events and the member meetings that are taking place and the networking activities. So we've had an enormous amount of participation in shaping this program, ultimately so that as you come together and work together, this is a program that is of you, by you, and for you. And while we have added some of the traditional elements that you would expect from a big conference in plenary sessions and an awards dinner and training activities, the core of this program's objective is to put you through professionally facilitated working sessions aligned with these program tracks so that we can begin to come together, coalesce, and advance to address these considerations. So let me pause for a moment and see if we have any questions amongst the group coming in. And if you do have a question, you can flag that on the group chat and I will unmute you. All right, well, while we're giving you guys a moment, to give you a sense as to what this program, how this program has been structured, this program is been set up over 4 days. The middle 2 days, the December 10th and 11th, are the primary days of the program. So you'll hear us refer to those days as the centerpiece or the primary days of the event. The shoulder days are Monday, December 9, and Thursday, December 12th. All of the professionally facilitated working sessions, which are the sessions that have been designed to carry us forward to tackle these challenges towards advancing our professions, have been set for Tuesday and Wednesday. And what we've done with the shoulder days is we've added tangential activities that we thought would be helpful to your professional development, to your networking, to your collaboration, and to issues that might be related to conversations taking place on the primary days. You can read more about this you can read a greater detailed schedule to glance on the program website at acoissp.org/agenda. So let's take a look at the working sessions, because that's really what this program is built around. I'll walk you through the rest of the activities so you can get a sense, but we want you to have a sense but first and foremost on what this thing is really about, and that starts with our 25 working sessions, which have been split apart through 5 program tracks. So our first program track is on elevating the climate change and sustainability occupations. We look at visibility, investment, and influence as really key themes here within this track. All of these have increased exponentially for climate change and sustainability professionals in every sector, but too often we remain marginalized and under-resourced. So we ask, how can we increase our impact as individuals and as a profession? And what can we do together to advance our status and role in organizations? And in order to address that, we've structured 5 sequential sessions. The first 3 are on Tuesday, the last 2 on Wednesday morning. So the first session will be a facilitated working session on who is it that we think that we are right now. The second session on how do we see our roles evolving over time. Where are we today? Where do we think we're going tomorrow? What are the elements of an elevated stature? What would we envision an ideal state to look like? And what would we think sustainable organizations and sustainable development might look like? And lastly, what are the steps that we're going to take to advance our professions? And that is track A. We'll move on to track B, where we look in parallel at integrating climate change and sustainability into other occupations. Both ACO and ISSP play an interesting role in being representative and responsible for advancing the fields or occupations of climate and sustainability leadership, but we also play a significant role as catalysts in the integration of climate change and sustainability into numerous other occupations. And as such, both organizations have a substantial number of members who are in roles that would be traditionally seen as other occupations, whether they be planners, civil engineers, architects, energy managers, facilities managers, many of whom are in credentialed professions as well. So in this context, we look at education, integration, and collaboration. We know we can't do this alone. Particularly that is the case in larger organizations. Thus, the interconnectedness, scale, and urgency of climate and sustainability challenges requires practitioners to build coalitions from every profession and function. So what are the best approaches to showing our colleagues how our concerns are connected to their own, thus accelerating progress on all fronts? In other words, how do we build that army? And that starts with session 1 on enlisting allies and other occupations and business units to advance our work. Session 2, aligning strategy with effective governance. Session 3, on embedding knowledge and requirements across the organization. Session 4, bridging the knowledge gap between the public, private, and nonprofit and academic sectors. And Session 5, strengthening connections across professional societies and credentialing bodies. As we move on to track C, shaping the market demand for professionals and practices, that's going to require us to address themes such as quantification, translation, and demonstration. Our practitioners deliver incalculable benefits to society and our individual organizations, yet must always make the business case using formulas and terms designed for a carbon carefree world. What are some approaches we can take to meet decision makers where they are and lead them to understandings of value that are essential to our success as individuals and organizations? And so we start this track with a session on quantifying the true return on investment and value of initiatives. Continue it with a discussion on integrating business and leadership language into our practice. And then the third session is on partnering with the financial and accounting professions to drive systemic change. Fourth session on leveraging voluntary and regulatory initiatives to drive demand for our professions. And lastly, how do we more effectively communicate our expertise professionally? We move on to track D, advancing decision support resources and tools. We've long since thought that as we got people better and smarter at working on climate change and sustainability, that they were going to start asking questions and looking for tools to help them do the work that they need to drive, which brings questions of accuracy, utility, and credibility. Our practitioners are forced to rely on tools and data that are incomplete, conflicting, hard to use, and unfamiliar to non-experts. We don't have the luxury of time to make them perfect, but must make them good enough to inform weighty decisions. So how should we balance the risk of inaction versus using imperfect analysis? How can we act, learn, and improve? How do we move from having 1,100 tools with no clear reason on what tool to use or how to having some sort of standardization and some sort of ability to accredit? And so we'll start with session 1 on achieving a shared view of what data is needed and how it should be used. Session 2 on quantifying the difficult to quantify, improving metrics for sustainable and climate-related financial decision-making. Session 3, incorporating land use and wetlands into sustainability and carbon accounting frameworks. Session 4, navigating decision support resources and tools. And session 5, looking at how science-based targets meet the real world in application. And last but not least, we go to track E, addressing critical social challenges of public health, equity, and inclusion, where our program themes here for this track are on ethics, values, and responsibility. All credentialed and licensed professions embed a moral compass to guide practitioners in their work. For climate change and sustainability experts, the stakes couldn't be clearer or higher. So how should we use our skills to save the most precious elements of our planet and humanity? We start this discussion with getting to a shared understanding of what equity is. We continue with addressing how can we transform social and environmental challenges into market opportunities. Our third session is on integrating public health into planning. Fourth, a discussion on enabling the next generation of climate change and sustainability professionals. And it's worth noting that in the context of that next generation, we have announced a student day on Monday, December 9. And session 5, discussions around how do we professionalize our practices in an inclusive manner. So as you can see, there's a broad range of opportunity here for you to sit with peers and tackle issues that are really existential to advancing our field of practice. And I can't stress how important it is for folks to recognize that these are not breakout panels. These are sessions where you will be working together with peers. And each session as such has we will have multiple session hosts. That person will play the role, or persons will play the role of introducing the discussion, at which point then it will be handed off to a professional facilitator who will be responsible for making sure that all participants have the opportunity to engage, discuss, and share their thoughts. And so that we have the opportunity as a room in each of these sessions to tackle the key questions that have been identified by the Planning Council and subcommittees for that corresponding session. So the goal for each of these working sessions, which you can navigate through on the program website, is to make sure that we have deliberate outcomes from each of these working sessions, which we hope will lead to collaboration and working groups and task forces and research projects, and a path forward for addressing these considerations. Without recognition that these functions are crucial to those institutions, we're really limited as to where we can go as communities, as businesses, organizations. So what is this event about? It's about enhancing your professional stature. It's about establishing practice standards. It's about streamlining our work into mainstream planning, decision, and making and design. It's about advancing our credentialing programs, getting better at them, but also advancing acceptance of those credentialing programs. It's helping you improve your ability to communicate with leaders and relevant stakeholders related to your work and your function. It's elevating your positions for yourself and your peers and for people who are going to do your work in the future. It's increasing recognition of the value of your field, and it's informing improvements to decision support and technical resources. In other words, what we all really need to do is figure out, and we all know everybody who's working in the space is understaffed, under-budgeted, and completely overwhelmed, and we get that. We have to find a way to have a foot in today and a foot in tomorrow at the same time. And so this is a crucial opportunity for you to invest in your future, to invest in the future of people who are going to do your work down the road and in your communities and your institutions by advancing your field of practice. While you're there, you'll get great education opportunities, great networking opportunities, great collaboration opportunities, great professional development opportunities. But you will also be investing in your future and our collective future by participating in this activity. So our question for you is, are you ready to help us shape our future? Information on registration I've already gone through. For those of you who participated in this virtual town hall, if you register on or before November 8th, we will give you a 20% discount. I apologize, but that discount code should have actually been on the screen. So I'm just going to back it out here and put it on the screen. Except apparently that's not going to be that easy. Let's put that back up on screen for you. That code will be good through midnight on November 8th. And at this point now, I'm going to open up the conversation, and we'd love to hear your thoughts, and we can have an open dialogue. And we are in town hall mode.